Welcome to the Show Me the Shift podcast with Coach Lenora, certified life coach, HR certified professional, international best-selling author, and creator of the Victorious Movement, a members-only community where she coaches her members from stuck to action and from scarcity to abundance in the areas of mindset, goal setting, and monetization online. The Show Me the Shift podcast was created to encourage future entrepreneurs that they can step boldly into their purpose by hearing the stories of others who have paved the way. Here is our host, Coach Lenora.
Hello, everybody. I hope everybody is having an amazing week so far. I am Coach Lenora, and I'm going to start this morning about talking about my Victorious Movement community, of course. This is a community in which I pour all of the information that I have learned as a life coach into the members of my community. I call them Victorious Visionaries. And so we talk about different things when it comes to our transformation. How do we transform ourselves from who we currently are to who we know we have been called to be? And so if this sounds like something that could be of interest to you in the areas of purpose, goal setting, abundance, monetization, just understanding yourself more, as well as being able to come from a place of gratitude, then by all means, the Victorious Movement might be the place for you. And so on that note, I hope everybody is having an amazing week. As I mentioned so far, I am Coach Lenora, and today we're going to talk about, because it is Wednesday, we're talking about career. And so today what we're going to do is focus on the career aspect of things and how can we go about knowing some of the questions that could be asked of us during an interview. Right now, there are a lot of people who are out of work, who are looking for opportunities. And so I do actually have, and I'll show you really quickly, I do have a webinar that I've recorded that basically is a on demand, sorry, I'm trying to do two things at once, but an on demand document here. Let me see, I think it'll share this way. But this is my From Overlooked to Interviewed mini course. And so what this basically is it helps people to go, again, from being overlooked to interviewed. And there is a link in this post that can take you to this course. It's only $37. It's about 2 hours worth of information, maybe a little bit less, but it basically helps you to go from feeling like you're overlooked, like you're stuck when it comes to trying to find a new opportunity and a new job, to understanding a little bit more about the process. So as you can see here, it's not only the course, but it's also three, and I actually threw in a fourth thing, which I'll be covering today, which are 20 questions that you could be asked during an interview. I'll be going over about 7 of them today, but there is information here of a resume checklist. Think like a man, because women, as I've mentioned on this podcast before, don't always apply to opportunities the same way that men do. And so how to think like a man if you're a woman who's buying this, or if you're a man who's purchasing this, you can give this to the woman in your life so that way she will know, or a daughter, or someone who will know, hey, this is how you really need to think about getting yourself to your next opportunity. And then common resume mistakes that people make that they can avoid. So we have 3 bonuses that come with it, as well as a 2-hour mini course, all for $37. Not a bad deal at all. So when you click on the link, it just tells you, hey, people have anxiety, they're stressed, they're overwhelmed when it comes to applying to opportunities. And so this just helps you to figure out how you might be feeling. Do you freeze up when you're being asked questions during the interview? Do you struggle to really even understand the job description and what it all means? And so this course is going to walk you through all of that. Here's kind of the information page that if you click on the link, it'll take you to. It gives you more information about me being kind of a corporate insider. I worked over 25 years in HR, as well as I had been in, it's kind of a threefold approach when you think about it. I've been a candidate, of course, as most people. I also have been a recruiter. So I was the person who was reviewing the resumes and getting them over to the hiring leader. And then also I was the hiring leader. So trying to backfill my own position. So it's a very rare find that there's somebody in the HR world who's had all 3 aspects. People typically have 1 or 2, but they don't always have all 3 from a specific recruiting and talent acquisition perspective. So I I think that gives me like a different approach and trifecta approach to be able to share with people from all layers and levels what leaders as well as recruiters want you to know when it comes to applying to opportunities. And so as you can see here, it just helps you to apply with confidence. So hopefully you won't have those sweaty palms and you won't be going blank with your responses, and just getting information from somebody who's done all of it. So as you can see here, this is just what the landing page kind of looks like for you to figure it out. It goes through a lot of things, by the way. The course for $37 again goes through how to read and understand the job description, how to build out a resume that stands out, how to gain confidence as you are interviewing so you're not as nervous. You can go in pretty prepared. And even if they don't ask you the exact questions that you prepared for, you should still have some idea of how to answer the questions that they do ask you. We talk about how to make sure that you don't do certain common mistakes that can happen either on your resume or in the interview process, as well as how to negotiate. A lot of people feel as though they can't negotiate, but if you are going to negotiate an offer, I used to always, tell my candidates if they were like, I want to ask for a little more, but I'm a little nervous. I don't know if I should. I would always tell them to ask for what you want now. This is the only opportunity that you're going to get to ask for it. If that is the difference between you saying yes and no, then ask for what you feel you deserve. The worst that's going to happen is the leader is going to come back and say, no, I can't make that possible. And if that's the case, now at least you know you're coming in with the best offer possible. And so those are some things that I like to, share within this training, as well as how to have those conversations, when to have those conversations. All of that is in the mini course, as well as, how do you stay confident when you get rejected? And sometimes over and over and over again, just purchasing this course does not mean that you're never going to get rejected again, that I'm guaranteeing that you're going to get the offer. I'm just saying that you will interview with more confidence and you'll have a better understanding of what you are reading when it comes to the job description. So that way, okay, yes, this is a job I should apply to, or based on what I learned, this probably isn't a job I can or should apply to because I really don't even have the skills that they're looking for. And I don't think that they'll take a chance on someone with my limited skills when they probably have a pool, especially right now with so many people looking for opportunities. They probably have a pool of people who are already overqualified. So why would they take a chance on me being underqualified? So just making sure you have a good understanding of those things. And often we just have to build ourselves up and make sure that we don't lose our confidence. So again, it's called From Overlooked to Interviewed. If you are interested in accessing that, again, it's $37. It is actually linked in this post as well. And on that note, we're going to go ahead and start talking about some of the common issues and things that people have as challenges when it comes to interviewing. Feel free also to share this video with anybody that you know that's going through the interview process right now, because it very well will also like, share, comment, tell me what you think about it. I have to do all those social media things, right? But also share it with somebody that, you think, hey, you're getting ready to interview. This lady was just talking about the fact that these are some of the top questions that you could be asked. So go ahead and prepare to answer these questions so that you'll be ready, right? And have a little more confidence. Even if you have 20, 50% more confidence going into an interview, that's better than feeling like you're going in and, again, sweaty palms and not confident at all. Right? Okay, so to start, again, if you get the mini course, you already are going to get 20 interview questions that could be asked. But for today's purposes, we'll cover 7. And so one of the main questions that you will 98% of the time get asked when you show up at an interview is, tell us a little bit about yourself. That's going to be a main question that probably everybody already knows, but I'm always surprised how many people don't seem prepared to answer. So that's why I said, look, this has to be on the list. It's kind of a no-brainer, but at the same time, people just don't think about it, and people don't always prepare to answer that question. You can tell because people will either give you a very short and abrupt answer to this question, or they will give you a 5-minute dissertation to this question. And typically leaders are looking for about 1 to 2, maybe 3 minutes max of you just giving us your elevator speech, maybe a little longer than an elevator speech, but of who you are and what your career has been. So we don't need, well, I grew up in this town and this is what happened in my life and I went to this high school and I played football at this university. We don't need all of that. What we want to know is basically let us know a little bit about yourself. We don't need to know hobbies. We don't need to know, anything that especially we shouldn't know as leaders who are interviewing you. But let us just know, who are you? Tell us a little bit about how you got into the profession, maybe a little bit about if you want to share some education things, that's great, especially if it's an alignment. If you went to school for one thing and your career is in a whole different direction, we probably wouldn't need to know that per se, unless you want to talk about that transition and that shift to you doing what you're doing today. But give us the high level information. How long have you been doing your job? What do you enjoy about your career? Tell us a little bit about yourself when it comes to the work that you have done. Okay, so that's first and foremost. Tell us a little bit about yourself. Number one question that you will, again, 98% of the time, probably 99 or 100%. But I do think that there are some leaders who just jump right into, tell me about this, tell me about that, give me an example of this, those types of things. So, but most people are going to want to know that first. And they may even ask you the second question, which is, tell us a little bit about why you're interested in this position or this company. So why are you interested in the role? So what about that job description is why you are interested, why you applied, why you're there? And if you don't have access to the job description, if you don't remember what that job description even said, that might be an issue. So I always recommend as you apply to opportunities, do one of two things, either print off the job description so that way you always have it on hand in case someone does ask you questions like this. You can actually have it right there in front of you. But if you're prepared, then you can read it as you know that you have this interview coming up. Make sure you're familiar with it, understand it, read it. Or you can just copy information from the job description, paste it into your own Google Doc or Word doc, and just make sure that you have that access there as well. So just either or, however you want to do it, but just making sure that you have access to the job description details, because you could be applying to 1, 2, 5, 10 jobs in any given week, and sometimes multiple a day. And so it would be good to know, okay, this is the job that they just called me about. This is the description that aligns with that, as opposed to trying to think back to 3 weeks ago and you've applied to 50 jobs since then. Which one is this one? And what did I apply to? And what was that, description referring to? So make sure that you know exactly why you're interested in the position, but also what do you know about the company? Because they may want to know that you have done your research. So look at the company's website, look into what it is that is their culture, what it is that's important to them, where they invest their time, their energy, their dollars, and that will help you to know more about what the company is involved in. And in your research, you might even realize whether or not it's even a company that you want to work for, because you could, in your research, come across things that you might say, I don't know if this is really the right place for me based on what I found out about them or their culture, what they're excited about. And those aren't things that I'm excited about. So how much energy will I be able to put into that if I were to get this job, right? Now, another question that you might get asked, question number 3, why did you leave? Either why did you leave or why are you looking to leave your current job? So why did you leave your last job, or why are you looking to leave your current job? That is a very popular question that a lot of times companies will ask. They want to know what the situation was. Was it that you left on your own? Was it that you were terminated? Is it that you're having currently a difficult relationship with your boss? Is it that you aren't performing? So you may not necessarily answer the questions in a way that gives them that understanding of, oh, I'm underperforming, so therefore that's why I'm looking for another opportunity. I mean, most people would not be as bold as to say that, knowing that that would hinder their chances of getting hired with the current company. But they're just going to want to know how you're going to respond to that question, because they may assume that you're not going to be asked that, so they're catching you off guard. But if you're ready, if you're prepared, you can know exactly how you want to answer that question. And I always say, keep it light. Keep it positive. Even if you have a difficult relationship with your current boss, explain it in such a way that does not make it seem as though you are talking down about them, saying anything derogatory, because all that leader is going to think is, this is how they're going to talk about me if it doesn't work out at this company. They're not going to think of it from your perspective, which could be 100% true. What they're going to say is, if they're being this negative about their current boss, then how are they going to talk about me the one time that something goes wrong, the one time that I don't meet whatever they expect me to do as their leader? So I always say, keep it light, keep it positive, explain it in such a way that just lets them know that, hey, I got the position and it's just not working out for me. It's not feeling as though I'm having the ability to be able to grow, to make an impact, to make the changes that I want to make with the corporation, with the company. It's not to lie. It's just to say that where you're trying to go, if it's true that your leader is hindering you, that you're not going to be able to get there at your current company. So just explain it in such a way that does not necessarily talk in a derogatory way about a particular person. Okay. All right. And that could be the same for the culture of the company or the people that you work around. Sometimes there are companies and people where, as they often say, people don't leave companies, they leave people. So as you're looking for a new opportunity, a lot of times it's not that people are leaving the corporation. The corporation may not have done anything to impact them, but the people that they are interacting and engaging with are the reason why they're leaving the company. And so again, explain things in such a way that, well, maybe it's about, the culture of the environment, but it's not necessarily about this particular person said this. And so therefore it, made me feel uncomfortable, and that's why I'm leaving. Okay. Now, some other questions that you could be asked are, what would you consider to be your greatest strengths? So what is it that you can really put like a stake in the ground on and say, okay, these are my strongest strengths that I would bring to the table for a position like this? Now, they could flip that question too and ask you, what are your greatest developmental areas or weaknesses as well? And so depending on the position, especially the level of position, I find that a lot of times with entry-level positions, these are the types of questions that you could be asked. But what is it that you feel are the true strengths that you could bring to the table for this position? So again, if you have that job description, you can review it and say, oh, these are the things that I can bring to the table because of the fact that I'm strong in this area. I can explain myself with this. Bring some data into it, bring some numbers into it, and help them to understand even more how, with what you have done, how you made an impact on the organization or the business or your team. And then also from the developmental side, just think of some things that, okay, if they catch me with this question, and I might feel like I was going to be caught off guard, but and a lot of times that's when they'll get like the raw, true, like, ooh, that's a bad thing. I've missed deadlines. I don't, meet the expectations of my leader, things of that nature. Well, if you can prepare for how to answer that type of question, you can word it in such a way that it's being truthful, but it doesn't come across as being as negative. So you can think through like, okay, what was my developmental situation that I had? And it could even go back to like, oh, well, when I first started working, it was like this, but over time, I have learned how to do this. So whatever it is from a developmental perspective, try to figure out as well, how can you explain how you worked on it? So even if it was something that didn't necessarily go as you would have liked or where you even disappointed yourself, then how did you go about making sure that you learned something from it, move forward from it, or worked through it so that way you can explain that side of it and not just leave it as, here's my weakness, period. No, we should say, here's my developmental area. However, this is what I've done to work on that and develop it to this point. Okay. Now, we also have a question that they potentially can ask you, which is, can you describe a time that you overcame a challenge at work? So a lot of times there are scenarios, situations in which you just have some challenges that come up, some difficult people, some difficult scenarios. It could be a challenge with a coworker, a client, or a customer, or even a leader. And so how do you handle that? They want to know exactly how do you utilize your own internal, way of handling things, your own internal dialogue to say, okay, this is the situation. How am I going to handle this in a professional way so that that way it can be potentially a win-win for everybody? And so that's what they're going to want to know. How do you handle situations? And so when they ask you that question of tell me about a time, that's specifically what they're wanting to ensure that they are getting a better understanding of. Okay. And then also tell us about one of your proudest professional achievements. So again, it can be worded in different ways, but they may want to know, okay, what have you been proud of? What have you done that has kind of gone above and beyond, where you have taken it to the next level, where you have really just, tried and true, just made everything so much easier, more simplistic for yourself, for the team, for the business, for your boss. And so what is something that you are really proud of as a professional achievement? And share that information with them as well. Okay. And then the last thing that I'll talk about is being able to prioritize tasks. So how do you prioritize? How do you ensure that on a busy day at the job that you are getting everything done humanly possible that you can get done? And how do you prioritize that? How do you list everything out? Do you use a calendar? Do you use alerts? Do you use a notebook and a checkoff list to make sure that you get everything done that you need to get done? So talk through your actual process of how you prioritize your tasks. And as a new task comes on top of your plate, how do you go about making sure, like, okay, where does this task fall in line with what's already here? Is it a high deliverable for my leader? Okay, let me do this. Oh, it's something that can actually take place. And yes, it's a new task, but it's not due till Friday. Okay, it can go on this list. It can go a little bit lower on the list. So figuring out how to explain that in such a way to help them understand your reasoning and your thought process when it comes to tasks. Okay. So again, we talked about, just to recap, we talked about tell us a little bit about yourself. We talked about why are you interested in the position or company? We talked about why did you leave, or why are you leaving your current company? What are your strengths and your weaknesses? Tell us about overcoming a challenge. And then also tell us about how you have been able to prioritize your tasks, especially when you have multiple things going on all at once. And so hopefully this information has been helpful to help you figure out, okay, based on what I knew before this, I didn't think of maybe some of these questions could be questions that I could be asked during an interview. Now, you may have thought, oh yeah, of course, these would be the main questions that could be asked. Keep in mind that the answers that you give to these questions, just know they may not be worded in this exact same way. And if they're not, that's okay. What you can do is know that, okay, if they ask me a question and it's not about prioritizing, but it's about analyzing data, well, is there something about my prioritizing question that I can kind of fit into the data question, or something about dealing with a difficult situation that can fit into that response? So sometimes what you'll find is that even though you come up with a question or an answer to a question that fits into one category, you might realize, you know what, actually that answer can fit over here. So let me go ahead and use that over here. And again, it'll help you with more confidence be able to explain that, because in your mind, you've already prepared and know exactly how you want to answer that question. So again, I hope everybody took at least one nugget away from the questions that we talked about today. And when we come back on Friday, we'll be talking about purpose. And so we will definitely be covering some things regarding what is your purpose? How do you live within your purpose? We talked about ikigai, the Japanese word for kind of walking in what you're aligned and, here on this earth to do. And so this Friday, we'll talk about that as well. Not sure exactly what part of purpose we're going to talk through, but really looking forward to having that conversation. And on that note, I hope everybody has an amazing, amazing week. Take care of yourself. Take care of each other.